Right, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who left a message of condolence on the video from the other day. YouTube is a weird thing for me. It's a one-way conduit. I don't get to see you guys get to see me. The only way that I get to kind of gauge how you feel about a piece of content is via the comment section. And let's be honest, over the past month or so, it hasn't been positive because of the material that we're covering. We're covering things that might be coming down the track in a few weeks' time that will all become clear. But I do appreciate you spending a little bit of time to send a message of condolences. I really do appreciate it. What I want to talk about today in conversation is a comment that I noticed on that video, which speaks to something I've noticed speaking to 20-somethings, their feeling of there is no prospect for me here, the future looks bleak, they feel disenfranchised. And I want to know what you think we need to do to fix this. I have a few thoughts. I'm hoping that my thoughts aren't just thoughts that live in my head. I hope that these thoughts are being thought through in government. But I just don't know. And the comment from Alex is really, really powerful because I see this reflected in so many other people. And maybe not just in 20-somethings. I'm seeing this reflected in people who are, 28, 30, early 30s, mid 30s. People feel the same. So look, let me just read the comment that Alex left for you, and then we can kind of dive into it as we go along. So he says here, one thing I want to say is this, that if something fundamentally doesn't change for working professionals, they will leave the country. I'm 23 and I'm an engineer. I don't know a single person who is looking to the future and saying they are certainly going to stay in the UK. Why would we? We can't afford a house. We can't afford to maintain our standard of living if we want children. Many of us are sharing 3 to 4 people rental properties. I was born in the UK, but the UK does not have the right to me. Why shouldn't I go somewhere where all of the above is possible for me thanks to my education? And if young working professionals start to leave, and this is a great point, then who will pay taxes for the pensioners' triple lock? Now, something that he mentions here actually ties into something that was in the news day before yesterday. We have had more people die than new people being born. And there is a lot of social, influences around the fact that we have more people die over the past year than we have had new babies. And Alex alludes to some of those points here. The fact that if you are in your 20s, in your 30s, and you're thinking about a child and you can't afford your own home, you're still sharing, or even worse, living with parents, as many people are now. People are living with their parents and into their 30s. How are you going to start thinking about having children when you feel as though you're not at a space where you should be at that particular stage of life? I did a previous video where I talked about the average age of a first-time house buyer in the UK. It's 34 in the UK. Across other parts of Europe, 35, 36. In one country, I believe it was in 40, 41 was the number. So how are you supposed to start a family when you don't feel as though you have the security of a roof over your head, or you are at the mercy of, rental increases, and rental costs become such a large proportion of your income that the thought of having a baby and sending kids to school or even sustaining a family is completely out of reach. It feels out of reach. We have fundamental issues here. And one of the things that Alex mentioned here, which I guess is one of the things that really sticks out to me, is that if something doesn't change, working professionals will leave the country. I made a previous video where I talked about the fact that places like Dubai and the UAE, they're making it very, very easy for people to move there, not just the millionaires, but they want to attract talent. They're doing what the Americans did after World War II, where essentially if they couldn't create it, they'll import it. They'll import the talent to build something. And if you look at Dubai and the UAE and the history and how it's progressed so far, they've done this to great success, and they only have designs to make it bigger from here on out. And in this comment that Alex left here, there were a lot of to and fro's of, like, where would you actually go? What are the options? And look, I don't necessarily know. I think you have to explore. You have to find out where you would want to live, what kind of opportunities are available there. People talk about Australia all of the time. Dubai is definitely on the table for a lot of people who want to move and live somewhere else, who want to feel as though it's not just about necessarily having a sustainable cost of living, but also being able to build and put down roots to create wealth and to have a comfortable lifestyle, create something for the future. And unfortunately, a lot of 20 somethings don't feel like that right now. And the point that he made that really sticks out to me the most, which ties into a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about here on the channel, is his last point around the fact that, and if working professionals, young working professionals were to leave, who's going to pay the taxes to sustain state pension and the triple lock? This is a huge concern for the government. So much so that this is why the state pension age is being pushed back, because the state pension is not being funded from a pot of money which has been reserved. We don't have a sovereign wealth fund like Norway. The state pension, the triple lock, is funded from the tax take. So if you have an exodus of young people, productive working people leave the country because they can't see a future, they can't see any kind of prospect staying here to work, who are you going to get to pay the taxes to fund state pension? This is all interconnected. And this is why I think, we need to hold our politicians, our governments to account. And I hope that they're thinking about this. I really, really do. I hope they're thinking about this in the corridors of power, because if they're not, then where does our country's future lie? But I do think there is a way forward. And you let me know whether you think any of these might be something that will be plausible to help younger people feel as though they have the ability to build and there are prospects in this country, so they stay here. For example, one thing that the government could possibly do is offer wage incentives for younger people for particular skill sets that are required in the economy. We know that we have a skill shortage. For example, we need more doctors. There aren't enough UK-born doctors going through the system to work in the NHS, and the NHS is a huge problem right now. So why not perhaps offer them the ability where if you work within this, we will guarantee that your wages will increase alongside inflation every single year, so we can get away from this wage stagnation, which has made buying a property unachievable for many people who are in their 20s right now. That may be something that the government could introduce. We could perhaps think about tax relief for younger workers, where maybe we give them a little bit more in terms of a personal tax allowance so they can earn some money tax-free, or some incentives around their taxes so they can actually have more money in their pocket. They can put it away even further. Those are just a couple of things that could be policies that could work effectively. But look, I am not a politician. I do not work in government. I do not know what they look at and how these things would work from a fiscal or even from a practical point of view when it comes to politics. But do we not need some kind of thinking outside of the box to try and address how younger people are feeling in this country? And I'm really conscious, just saying it out loud, that there is a good proportion of the channel who are, baby boomers, who will be saying, well, younger people just need to work a little bit harder. It was tough for us when we wanted to buy homes. It's different. It's different. It is not the same thing. This generation are facing challenges that no generation has previously had to face. The real risk of AI and automation completely taken out job sectors entirely, where most things will become automated. This conversation around property, yes, it was relative. You had 15% interest rates back in the day, but your deposit was not 8 times. I mean, the cost of property, I should say, was not 8 times your salary. And the deposits and wage stagnation against the rise of this property increase or property price increases weren't the same. So there are nuances. And I understand where boomers will become frustrated with millennials and younger people, but it's just not the same conversation. I would love to know what you guys think, because I don't have the answers, but I'm seeing this more and more often in comment sections on Instagram, whenever I speak to younger people, and I just think that this is unsustainable for the country. And we have to do something. We have to hold the government, our officials, accountable to do something to change how the younger generation feel about their prospects in this country. Otherwise, we don't have a country.